Hello and welcome to this video with Print to the People. My name's Donna and I'm going to be showing you how to make some marks with things that you'll find at home and an ink stamp pad. So you'll need an ink stamp pad and some things that you'll find lying around, like from a fork maybe, or a lid of a bottle. And we're going to be creating some really beautiful marks like these. So these are ones I made with a fork, and that's some pencil, the ends of a pencil, and this glue stick lid. You can see those, they actually look a little bit like wood, I think, and even little bits of Lego. So the video is going to guide you through, with me helping you along the way, to make some of these. You can see them behind me, little rocking birds. Here we are. And they've been designed and printed on using some of the marks that we're going to make today. If you open them up, you'll actually get a different shape, and we're going to fold down the beak. So not only can you make a bird today, you might like to make a flapping fish and then have a go at playing the game. But I'll tell you more about that when we go through the video. So I'm really excited. So grab your ink stamp pads, have a rummage at home, and watch the next bit of the video to see what you need. So here are all the things that we're going to use for our activity today. I'm just going to spend a moment just talking about them so that you can gather them together and be ready to begin. The first thing we've got is an ink stamp pad. Mine is a black one, but you can use any colour that you like. Usually the darker colours work really, really well when you're trying to create those lovely marks and shapes. The next thing I've got are a couple of pieces of plain A4 paper. Yours don't have to be white. Whatever plain paper you have is great. You might want to use the back of an envelope, a large one. As long as it's plain, that's great. The next thing you can see is a bowl. A bowl or a plate works just as well. We're going to be drawing around our bowl here, so just make sure that your bowl fits on your piece of paper with enough room around it, because you'll need a little bit extra either side. Okay, the next things we've got are some things that we're going to use to create the marks with our printing today. So I've got a couple of lids from a milk bottle top and a toothpaste tube, and also I've got a coin, and the edges of the coin make really lovely shapes. So have a look around and see what you can find at home. In this corner I've got a glue stick and a cardboard tube. Again, we're not going to be doing any sticking, but we're going to be using the ends of these objects. So if you don't have them, have a look and see what else. Maybe a cork you might find works just as well. So over in this corner we've got a fork and a spoon, and they really, just the two of those, make a huge range of marks. So if you don't have any of the other items we're going to be using to create our marks, even just a fork on its own will work just as well for this activity. I've got a pencil and a pen and a pair of scissors and a ruler, and these little things here are not for us to be drawing and colouring in, but we're going to be using them, the ends and the lids, to create marks. The last couple of things are a piece of bubble wrap and a couple of pieces of Lego. And if you don't have those with you, that's okay. Just the video will show you the kinds of marks you can get with quite unusual objects. And hopefully it might inspire you to go rummaging around at home and just have a go at using things in a different way. So the last thing is a piece of kitchen roll. If you don't have kitchen roll, a tea towel or an old magazine will work just as well. We're going to put this underneath our piece of paper so that when we print we get a really lovely little cushion and we'll get nice clear shapes and marks. So we've got everything together, so let's begin. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing you can do is to take your kitchen roll or your tea towel or your magazine and just put it underneath your pieces of paper that you're going to print on. You'll need quite a hard surface, so a table's great, maybe a kitchen work surface, or if you prefer to sit down, you could always lean on a hardback book. So what you've got now is a little cushion, which means that when we start to print, you'll get some really lovely, sharp, crisp results. Okay, so my glue stick, I take it and we're going to just show you what kind of marks you can make. And maybe have a look at the examples I've got here and predict which kind of circle or shape the glue stick lid's going to make. And just gently push down on your glue lid here, and you can see straight away it creates the really beautiful and interesting, almost moon-like surface really there. And I can use the bottom end and then also create an interesting shape. And really this activity is asking you to have lots of fun and just experiment. There really isn't any way that you can make a mistake, and hopefully the more confident you get, you'll be able to create some really lovely patterns. So this one I've made by just gently curving my glue stick, so that I'm not using all of it, I'm just putting some ink on the edge. And you can see how you can get really different kinds of lines just by moving your object in different ways. So you can see now how these examples match up. So we're going to move on now to some lids, which also create some really lovely, interesting shapes. I'm just going to move my examples away. So the next set of examples you can see here are using different kinds of lids. So this is my toothpaste one, and if you just gently press it in, you can see you get not only a lovely circle, but you get like a lovely ring as well. And when I started using this kind of object, I realised that there were lots of different ways I could maybe create eyes for this activity, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. So the other one I'm going to use, which gives you kind of a larger circle, is a milk bottle top. And I'm just going to gently press that in as well. And by layering it on top of each other, you can make it as intricate as you like. And you can just see, you're going to have lots of fun with this. I call this like a slinky design. If you can remember those toys that you can kind of use to go downstairs. That's what that reminds me of. So you can use either side of your lid, it's really up to you. So then the next thing we've used is the top of a felt tip pen. So you can see that this shape is very different to the actual top of your pen. So I'm just going to show you what kinds of marks that brings out when you stamp. So my cushion is really helping me here because it's giving me just that little softness, which means when I push down, I get really lovely results. So you can gather your shapes together or you can have them far apart. I'm just building up an example page here, and I'd like you to do the same with your piece of paper. It's really important just to have some fun, and you'll make lots of really interesting discoveries, I'm sure. So I'm going to try the other end of this lid and see what happens. So you can see, just by wiggling it round, I've actually got some really beautiful eyes. Or maybe frog spawn, I don't know. And then you can experiment by putting one of your objects together with another, and all of a sudden things start to come alive and become even more interesting. You get really lovely results just with the end of a pencil. So I'm just going to show you. This design here was created just with the end of a pencil. And if I show you close up, you can see it looks like lots and lots and lots of tiny eyes, bowling balls maybe, I don't know. But the patterns are just beautiful. So you can see just from using a few items how many different kinds of patterns are easy to create. And just looking at the two different kinds of pencils here, and I realised that they make different marks depending on where the lead is in your pencil here on the end. And there you have it. So on the theme of the lovely things that you can do with pencils, before I talk about the cardboard, I've made an example of some of the eyes that you can create. And you can see this one I've made with my glue stick, and then I've put my toothpaste lid, and then I've put my pencil. I'll show you in a minute these lovely squares I created and rectangles by the Lego. So you can see that you get lots of different characteristics, personalities, just from the eyes that you can find to make. And look, just with a few things, look at the lovely things we've made already. The next thing then I'd like to show you is your cardboard tube. So here you can just push it in to your ink pad. Sometimes you might need to do it a few times because the cardboard's a little bit more absorbent. And I've found just making sure you've got enough ink on the end of your tube really helps. These lovely circles might not be as super perfect as the ones you might get from maybe a plastic lid, but they're really interesting. And I really like the kind of little tiny marks you get on the edges. And one thing I discovered is if you kind of overlap them similarly to how we did our slinky, you can start to kind of create almost like a 3D effect just by having a go at how they interlink. It's really fun. I'm not really thinking very much about this, I'm just having fun, and I really would love you to do the same, because the textures that you get, a lot of the time, you didn't even really plan it. So you can see I've cut my cardboard tube in half, and I had a go at trying to bend the cardboard just to see the different shapes that I could get. You don't have to use all of these objects, I'm just giving you lots to choose from. So when you push your cardboard tube down onto the ink pad, do it a couple of times just to get really good coverage. And then again, if you gently squeeze and push down, you can find you can make really interesting curves, semicircles maybe, arcs. And then again, you can also explore how they all kind of interlink together, which is really lovely. So I've used my objects quite independently of each other on this piece of paper. But again, you can put the two together and just see the lovely patterns that you can make. Okay, I'm just going to pause and then I'll show you a few more objects that you might like to try. So you can see I've got my fork and my spoon ready. Actually, this is one of my favourite kind of objects to try. Got a bit carried away preparing examples for you, but I'm sure you'll be the same when you get your fork ready and have a go. So just take the back of your fork and gently press it into your ink pad. Just be careful you don't poke yourself, but Just remembering you've got that lovely bit of kitchen roll or magazine or tea towel flattened out under your paper, and then it's beautiful what you can create just by rolling your fork onto the paper. And as we're going to be creating birds or fish, your mind might start to think about the scales or the feathers that you want to create, that kind of texture. And just by layering the fork in different ways on top of each other, the marks you get are just really lovely. I also found that the harder you push, sometimes the darker, the richer the print you get. But you might want to just explore the kinds of different shades you get with your stamping. You can see here that I've put one fork print that way and then the other one in the opposite direction, and you can then create some really lovely overlapping textures. I'm just going to create a lovely little corner here. So it's not necessarily about being super neat or having a plan. This activity is really meant to give you the chance to really just have fun. This one here I made by going right off the edge of my paper, and it creates just a lovely way of using that edge of the paper so it looks like your marks are just falling off. So again, you can use the bottom of your fork and go towards the end, or you might want to use it this way round so that the tips of your fork are touching the paper. And you get a really lovely edge like that. So that's just with one edge of your fork, and you can make lots of different marks, sometimes even just using the bottom. These were some of the marks I used for pupils in the eyes that you saw earlier. So it's just about using your object as a printing tool and just exploring what you can do with it and how it works best for you. So just using the edge there, you can see, so there you are. So moving on to the spoon in a similar way, I'll just move these examples out of the way for a moment. Here you can see all of these lovely marks were made with just a spoon. So again, you don't have to have many objects for this activity. These marks here were used by just pressing the bottom of your spoon into the ink pad and then rolling it onto your paper. And you can see it's got a lovely covering of ink there, but as you're rolling you can decide how much of that ink you want to have onto your paper. There we go. I think what's really important is to notice that if there are any kind of bumps and niggles in the back of your lovely kitchen roll or your magazine, you might actually get those coming through onto your print, but that doesn't really matter. That's maybe part of your design. And again, the edge of your spoon creates a similar one to the edge of your fork. And it might be that you might want to make a few little crisscross hashes. Really pretty. And then this lovely section here, and you can see all the different tones are just by using the end of your spoon, similarly to the end of your fork. So maybe put your music on, go a bit dotty, and maybe cover a part of your page. You can see the more I roll my spoon, the longer the mark I get. So really, just using one tool, you can get so many different shapes and marks. Sometimes dragging creates an interesting feel, and just nice to try and explore the different textures you can get. So that's your spoon and your fork. I'm going to just show you how a ruler gives you just the edge of a ruler. Again, with it being so thin, you do have to push it quite a few times. And this is a sample of what it looks like in just using it and flashing it on top like so, giving it a little wriggle like that. So you don't have to use a ruler this big if you're only using the edge. And obviously it's really how you want to shape your marks, curve them, create some movement. So that's why it's really important before we start making our fish or our bird, you give yourself lots of time just to explore the marks that you can make. Okay, the last few things we're going to look at are our bubble wrap, our coin, and our Lego. So you can see this is the example that I put together for your coin. If you look really closely, you can see the little tiny ridges that you get. I've only used a £1 coin, so maybe you can experiment with different kinds of coins. And again, a little bit like I did with my spoon on the end, depending on how much ink you put on and how far you roll, you can really create a real lovely range of marks just by using it with different amounts of pressure, or sometimes if you want you can even create like a wiggle by just carrying it on. It's a little bit tricky, but you'll get the hang of it. There we go. So, bubble wrap and Lego, the last two things to go. Bubble wrap is just a lovely way of getting a texture, and sometimes even inside one of those jiffy bags, you might be able to cut yourself out a little piece if you don't have lots of bubble wrap lying around. And so there you are, you can see it creates a beautiful mark there. And then it's just a simple matter of gently pushing down and lifting off. Oh, it's just gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Okay, the last, I have so many favourites, but the marks you can make with Lego are really fun. I suppose please ask the person who owns the Lego before you grab it. So the samples I've made are, some are very regular, and then some kind of use different shapes or different sizes of the Lego piece, but this is my favourite, where it just kind of changes the position of your Lego brick. So again, if you push down into your ink, and again, there you are. Beautiful, simple, quick. What I did discover was the lighter you press, you don't always get the circle in the middle. So sometimes it's worth just experimenting to see if you don't want that mark in the middle, you can maybe just get the edge. And I did use it for creating the eyes that we talked about earlier and looking at the different shapes to create different personalities with your prints. So here's another shape, another piece of Lego. And again, it doesn't have to be all neat and ordered. You can mix up the shapes that you have. So again, I'll just pop back to these eyes. So there you have your Lego outline and your little felt tip pen and your pencil to create the pupils inside. So I've given you a lot to think about, a lot of examples, and I hope that's inspired you. Please take time and have fun and experiment with the different kinds of marks you can make. And the next part of the video will be us getting ready to prepare our outline and then get designing. So now we're ready to prepare the base for our bird or our fish. So what you can see in front of you is what you'll need for the next part of this activity. You've got your plate or your bowl, a ruler, a pair of scissors and a pencil. And of course your piece of A4 paper or plain paper that you're going to use to print on. So these two birds in front of me have been made the same way. The only difference is I used a slightly smaller bowl when I was drawing my outline for this one. So let's get started. First thing to do is to put your plate or your bowl in the middle of your piece of paper. Hold it steady with one hand while you carefully just draw all the way around the outside with your pencil. And then carefully remove your bowl and put it to one side because you won't need it again. Okay, then you get your ruler, and we're not going to measure anything that specifically. We're just going to put our ruler to show that there is about the same amount of paper either side of the ruler. And when you're happy with that, just make a little mark on the outline of your circle there on the edge. And then take your ruler away, and what you've done is you've created a couple of helping marks for your tail and your beak of your bird or fish. So this side is going to be your beak, and although we're not going to want a huge beak, what we don't want to do is be left with not enough paper. So what you're going to do is just gently make two lines to form a triangle right up to the edge of your paper. It looks huge, but we won't need it all. It's just to make sure we've got something to make our beak with. And again, at the back, just draw two diagonal lines with your ruler. They don't have to be particularly the same length, as long as they can sort of spread out and give you that lovely breadth there of paper. Then, carefully, with a pair of scissors, cut round now so that we have this part and this part cut out as well as the edge, and you're left with one piece. If you would like to ask someone to help you with your cutting, go for it. I'm not going to take great care with mine because I'm going to do it quite quickly for the video, but you don't need to rush. Just take your time and gently, carefully look as you cut, because scissors can be sharp. And when you get to the edge for the beak, just cut like I'm doing, just that extra bit of paper, and you'll see why in a moment. And then again, we're going to go around the other side and cut all the way round to the tail. And I'm just going to chop that bit there. Now, these two extra bits that we've cut off, don't put them in the bin. We're going to use those. They're going to be really handy. Just put them to one side for later. So now what I'd like you to do is to fold your shape so that the one edge, the curved edge, matches the other together as best you can. And then sometimes you have to wriggle it a little bit. Just make a fold right in the middle. Now you can see one side of our shape has more paper than the other, but that's absolutely fine. Don't worry about that. What we're looking for is that you've made a lovely line in the middle and that your shape is in half. So what we're going to do now is just finish off the tail and the beak. So if you turn your little creature over and look carefully at what end has the least amount of paper, what we want to do is to have both sides with the same amount of paper. So just get your ruler and let's make the beak a little bit smaller because we don't need one quite that big. And then we're going to cut and snip just any of that extra paper off so that what you're left with is a beak on both sides. And when you open it up, you can see there. And we're going to do the same for the tail. So So again, have a look and see which side has got the most on it. And we're going to just trim off, you can see, we're going to just trim off the rest. If you want to, you can draw another line or use the line that we've already got. And just trim off the bits that we don't need. There we go. Now I discovered that when I tried to make my lovely bird rock and wobble, that sometimes his tail is just too long and so he doesn't wobble as much as I would like. So a solution to that is to just cut off a little bit more paper, like so, and just try him again. And really it's trial by error really. There you are, he's a much happier bird now, rocking around there. So well done, you've created your base for us to print on. If you've done a bird, then you've got a beak and a lovely tail. And if you've got a fish, then later on we can either fold that under and there you are, a flapping fish ready to design. So I'm going to pause the video so you can do that next step and then we'll get ready to put your marks onto your bird or fish. So here we have 3 different designs of birds and I'm just going to talk a little bit about them so that you can make a couple of decisions before you start designing and printing. So the middle one, you can see if I open it up, the design has been made by just using, I think it's a pencil and our glue stick and just covering it with just those 2 objects. And if you want to do that, you're very welcome to do that. If you would like sections to your bird or your fish, you can see that what I've done on the other 2 is draw just 2 lines to create 3 different parts of your bird, and that means that you can then mix up your designs. To be honest, it's really up to you and these are just ideas. So what you'll need to do is take your plain template and just simply draw 1 line at the top and 1 line at the bottom. This bit I always think about as the red part for a lovely robin. And then it's up to you. When you come to design, you can leave the middle one blank or you can put details in all 3. And when you actually do it on the other side as well, you end up, when you open it up, with a very interesting kind of shape. And you can see if I carried on with this, I'd actually get quite a symmetrical design where one side is really the similar as the other. So really it's up to you. And they don't always have to be the same patterns. It's quite nice to change them so that you can get a different look depending on which way you're looking at your bird or fish. So now that you know how to begin and to put in those last couple of marks, we can start printing and creating your design. Okay, so you're almost ready to get started and to dig out all those ideas that you have for the marks you're going to make and the objects you're going to use. You can see that I have just used a black pen to go over those lines just to show up those sections. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine. But for me, that just sort of finishes it off and helps me when I come to decide the kinds of marks I'm going to make for each section. You can do that on both sides and then you're ready. So I'm going to create quite a large eye for this bird. And I'm going to do that using my glue stick. And just remember as well to put down your kitchen roll or your magazine or your tea towel. So you've got that lovely cushion. And then I'm going to give him a pupil for his eye, just there. And then I'm going to give him some lovely feathers with my fork. Now, I did say to you to hang on to the couple of bits of paper that we actually cut off our shape. And that's because they're helpful when you come to have the different sections on your bird or fish. So you can see here that on the top part I've used a fork, and this is actually the edge of the fork, but some of the circles look like they've gone over or under that section and they're not there. And so I'll show you how to do that in a moment. So the first thing to do is to get your fork or whatever your first object is and just have a go. Dive in, get started, move your little fish around to whatever shape or place it is easier for you to print. I'm going to give him a bit of a interesting tail here. Now you might want to turn it over straight away and do the other side, but my advice would be is to do one side first, leave it to dry, or open it up and then do the other side. So underneath I'm going to use the lid of my glue stick, and I'm going to use this shape on the top here to go all the way along like I showed you. What's actually quite nice is you end up with a really beautiful piece of kitchen roll, a nice piece of abstract art along the way. Now, if I don't want my circles to go right onto my next section, what I can do is just cut off a little piece of paper and use it as a mask, and you'll see what I mean. So you can put your paper right up to that line, and then you're happy to print away with your object and to push it right in. And what you'll find is you don't get any marks going onto that middle section. So that's a little sneaky tip that you might use along the way when you're creating your different sections to your bird. So I'm just going to do a little tiny beak for you, and then really it's up to you. You've got everything you need now. This is the best bit, bringing your bird or your fish to life and having that time to play and to print. Enjoy your time. So thank you so much. We've come to the end of our video, and all there is to say is I really hope you've enjoyed it, and I really am excited about imagining these birds and fish flying around and flapping around in different people's homes. It's up to you if you want to display your little bird and have it at home, or if you'd like to maybe even write a lovely little note inside and you could post it to somebody, a friend or somebody in your family. You might even want to hang it up. So there's lots of things that you can do with your birds. If you'd like to try your flapping fish, whether you've made a bird or not, if you just simply open up your design and just push your finger across the top to create a really flat shape, then, and I haven't experimented with this, but if it's a fish, tuck the beak inside. You can cut it off, but then if you change your mind and want to keep it as a bird, then it has no beak. So perhaps do that, tuck it under, and then all you'll need is a magazine. It's nice to make 2 or 3 of these, and perhaps you can have a race with someone. And all you need to do is gently flap the magazine behind your fish and watch it swim away. And off it goes. So thank you so much, and I really hope you've enjoyed printing with things at home, and look out for some more videos, and it will be really lovely to see your creations. So if you'd like to share them with us, maybe do so on some of the social media links that will be attached to this video. Thank you very much.